Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of three life changing tips from highly effective people. And today it's public holiday in Germany. And we have with us all the way from New Ulm, Chris Gordon. How are you, Chris?
I am well, Sherrick. How are you today, sir?
I am fine and I'm getting confused again and again because Ulm is a city very next to us on the border of Bayern, our state, and the next side of the border of the Bayern, this next state starts, and then there is a city called New Ulm or Neu
Yes,
Ulm. So it's very confusing.
yes. We were actually named after Ulm, Germany, so it's quite serendipitous that we're talking today.
That is really interesting. And today's show, guys, is very interesting because Chris, as an online teacher, has been teaching since long time. We know about online teaching now since the COVID, but actually he has been teaching since a long time. And we will talk about that. And also we will talk about a midlife, something unexpected in his happened in his life that started from a small scratch and it turned into a big kind of a health problem. We will talk about that, but it also we can also relate to it in our lives because a pandemic came and we were not expecting it, but actually we have to fight through it. So Chris, we are blessed to have you here. We will like to have a brief introduction from yourself before we move to tip number one.
Certainly. Well, I'm a 46-year-old husband and father of three here in Newell, Minnesota. As you said, I'm an online teacher. I teach special education in a middle school, so between the primary grades and secondary grades. And I love running. I love taekwondo. I love comic books and comic book heroes.
Mhm.
And I'm also a professional speaker and podcast host who talks about the attitude of gratitude, which is why I'm here today.
That's very good. We will talk about attitude and gratitude. Attitude with gratitude, right?
Yes, sir. The attitude of gratitude.
Oh, that's good. So let's move to tip number one.
Tip number one is T. Think about all the good things in your life, both big and small. When we think about all the good things in our lives, we tend to think big, our house, our family, our faith. But sometimes it's the small things that can bring that daily dose of joy in our lives. For example, I have here some lip balm. Now, on a normal day, you might not think too much of it, but when your lips are really dry
Mhm.
and you can't find any and wherever you look and your lips are getting drier and more painful, when you
Yeah.
finally find this little lip balm, it is the most valuable thing in your house.
Yes,
And so
smaller things can help.
yes, and so finding the value in everyday things and how they help you live your daily life can bring more appreciation and actually bring more value and wealth to your family. Now, I'm not saying you're going to become rich and be able to buy that new car you want, but you'll be able to find the value in your everyday life and it'll make you feel wealthier and appreciative of all that you have.
I think that really makes sense. It's the way of how we think. Actually, every time around we have some things that are valuable, but we forget to acknowledge them because we are too worried about the other things that we don't have. But that's really very nice tip. Thank you very much. Yeah, so let's move to tip number two.
Tip number two is A, acknowledge the appreciated. We
Mhm.
have people in our lives that we love, whom we love and like, but sometimes we take them for granted. We don't let them know what they do for us that
Mhm.
makes them so wonderful. And so let your loved ones know why you appreciate them and make it specific. For example, my wife is a fantastic person, but in particular, she's a great cook. And I can cook a couple of things, but she does the majority of the cooking and she's wonderful at it. So I let her know as often as I can how wonderful of a cook she is. And if you let everyone know how you appreciate them, not just that you do, but how you do, not only will they feel better about themselves, but they're more likely to do the things that you appreciate.
Yes, that's really wonderful thing because often we do not tell our friends or family members that this is the wonderful thing you are doing in the life and that you are doing it good. But often we are taking it for granted, and if they are not doing something good, we are only pointing it out, you know. So it's very important to appreciate someone, because sometimes it's really motivates you to do really good thing. And actually this relates to a story from my parents also, but I don't want to quote it. But actually this was the thing that my father used to say that to my mother, yeah, she does all the good things, but I only point out when she does not do anything, because good she already knows it. And my mother used to say never acknowledges it. So so
Mm,
it's wonderful. You have to acknowledge it, because it does not take so much energy, and next person feels really really good about it. Yes,
yes.
wonderful tip. Let's move to tip number three.
Yes. Tip number 3 is G. Give someone else a reason to be grateful. Now, Sharik, I don't know if you ever played tag where in your life in your childhood, but tag is where you
Mhm.
go around and you touch someone and they're it. Well, G means you give someone else a reason to be grateful. You
Yeah.
do something nice for them. Here in America, often we will shovel walkways and snow blow driveways. And so I will do that for my neighbors. I pick up trash whenever I go running because
Hmm.
I'm an avid runner, or just hold a door for someone. And the
Hmm.
great thing about those examples is that it costs nothing for me to do those acts, but for the person for whom I'm doing it, it's priceless. It could make their day and could
Hmm.
actually turn a negative day into a positive one. So giving
Actually, this
someone
is
else a
this is
reason to be
really nice.
grateful.
Actually, this is a very nice idea, and I should play tag with my friends actually, because it's a good habit. You lose nothing, but you create value in other people's lives, and actually you build a better society.
Yes,
Very
sir.
nice. Guys, for people who joined us today, we had Chris with his three wonderful tips, and Chris is very interesting personality for us, because he has been doing online teaching, which we are doing now, but he has been doing since long time, even before the pandemic. This is wonderful. We can learn a bit more about it. Like, actually, the teachers are really struggling to go online. This is one thing. The other thing we will start now is we will ask him about the midlife tragedy, that health tragedy happened to him. He was just 40 and having a normal life, and then all of a sudden something happened with a small scratch, and this is something we are not expecting in our lives. So what happened? Can you please share it, and how you cope with it?
Yes, sir. So as you said, I was 40, and one day I was helping my wife take our 3 kids into our van so she could take them to daycare and school. My wife is also a teacher, but she teaches at the public high school here in New
Mhm.
Ulm. So I was flying my younger son, Seth, back and forth to
Mhm.
the garage where our van was. I went too far to the right and I scratched the back of my right hand on my garage wall.
Mhm.
Now, I'm a former boy. I've gotten scratches before. I didn't think too much of it. So I put him in the van. I kissed them all goodbye, and they went on their way. And I
Yeah.
went back into the house to start online teaching. 3 days passed. The scratch wasn't a big deal until I woke up on Saturday morning to find a lacrosse ball bump on my right elbow.
Mhm.
I I went into the hospital and the doctor there looked at it and said, "Oh, it might be bursitis, it might be something else. Keep an eye on it and let
Okay.
us know if something happens." So
Mhm.
I did. I kept an eye on it. I kept an eye on it as it started to grow and grow and grow until it tripled the size of my right arm and shoulder.
Oh my god.
In comic book parlance, I was the Incredible Hulk in mid transformation.
Mhm.
So obviously something was wrong.
Mhm.
Becky took me to the emergency room and they admitted me with a giant arm. But then once they got me into a room and started taking my vitals, they found out that I had also gone septic, which means
Mhm.
there's a chemical in my bloodstream trying to kill off the infection that caused my giant arm. But
Okay.
sepsis, as it's called, can also kill you because it's a poison and it can
Mhm.
cause you to
Mhm.
go into septic shock. So
Okay.
I have 2 major things wrong with me now.
Mhm.
I stay overnight in the hospital. That attending doctor comes to me in the morning and says, "Mr. Gordon, this is beyond us. We can do nothing more for you here. Where do you
Oh,
want to go?" It's a
what was your
lit
feeling at that time?
I was a little unnerved, but at the same time, I thought, well, if she can't help me, I have an idea of where to go. So I told her they should send me to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota.
Okay.
Have you guys ever heard of the Mayo Clinic, Sherrick?
Not really.
Okay. I know it's a weird question. It is world renowned. It's a famous hospital in the United States. And it's only
Okay.
2 hours from where I live. So I
Mhm.
tell them to fly me there. And so they do. They quickly admit me into the Mayo Clinic, and that's where they diagnose me with necrotizing fasciitis,
Mhm.
which is
What's that?
also known as flesh-eating bacteria.
Mhm.
Now, as a comic book fan, I love superheroes. This is a perfect origin story
Hmm.
because I had no way of being bitten by a radioactive spider, and I'm not from outer space, despite what some people believe.
Hmm.
But I mean, a flesh eating bacteria, you couldn't ask for better. However, it was currently killing me. So that was a problem.
Yes.
So they quickly prepared me for surgery.
Mhm.
And in that preparation, they put me under for 5 days.
Okay.
So I was in a coma for 5 days. During that five
Wow.
days, they basically removed the skin from my arm, shoulder, chest, and back.
Mhm.
So they took it off, and when they did that, they found out the infection had gone so far into my right arm that they were certain they would have to amputate my right arm.
Okay.
As you can
Mhm.
see, I still have my right arm.
That's good.
And
Yeah. But at that
yes,
time,
yes,
mhm.
spoiler alert. And that's because the occupational therapist who was in attendance in the surgery saw that I still had hand function. So, what the doctors did was they removed a flap of skin, a 40 centimeter by 10 centimeter flap of skin from my left thigh, and placed it on my right hand and forearm.
Okay.
Since this is my thigh and my hand, I call this my thand. So I might
Yes.
copyright that someday.
Mhm.
So, but so they also not only did they take a flap of skin from my leg and put on my arm, they also had to take skin grafts. And so what they did was they took a skin graft harvester, which is like a giant cheese grater, and they ran it up and down my legs and my back to put pieces of like strips of skin on my arm. And you can see what it looks like now.
Mhm.
You know, if are you familiar with the character Deadpool, Sherrick?
No, 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 really. But
Okay, all right. Some of your viewers might be here. I'll just
I
show
will
you
check
here.
now.
Yeah, so you can
Oh,
see
yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
far
I
it
see.
goes. So I call
Mm.
myself a discount Deadpool or a wannabe zombie because I
No,
have
but it was,
reanimated
but
skin.
I'm happy that now you look normal. It was terrible time, So it was but you recovered, So it must have been a terrible phase of several years, right?
It's been I have good days and bad days, but thankfully most of my healing happened in that first 6 months,
Okay.
and it's really when I woke up after my coma and Becky, my wife, was telling me about all the good things people were doing. That's when my healing really started, not just my physical healing, but my emotional healing. Because I was, the first couple hours and days that I was awake, I was coming to grips with what my life was going to be like.
Yes, yes. So here I want to ask a question also, or maybe related to maybe it's a life lesson for us, because similarly, when pandemic happened, came, you were not expecting it, or somebody has some accident in the life, like you had, you were not expecting it. but now you are recovering from it. But you told that actually when your wife told about the good things, so it was emotional healing also, and it helped you. So we I want to request you to say some words about this saying something good to each other, adding hope instead of just crying over the spilled milk.
Yes.
How it helps. You should maybe motivate us.
Yes, sir. So in those first couple days when I was taking stock in how my life has been forever changed, I had a huge splint and a cast on my right arm. I had bolts, knobs sticking out of my left leg
Yeah.
where they were going to tighten my wound over time where they took my fan. I had I had bolts sticking on my legs. I had like a Frankenstein's monster leg. I had painful areas in my body, in my back, in my shoulder, in my chest, and my back, and my legs where they harvested the skin grafts. I also had a blood clot in my leg because I was bedridden for so long that a blood clot had formed. That's a
That's
lot to
terrible.
take in.
Mm,
And this happened only a few days ago at that time. So
mm,
I'm trying to think of, what's going to go on for me now. How is my life going to go forward from this point?
mm,
And it's at that moment when my wife told me how everyone was stepping up to help us out. They were donating food and toys to my kids. They were coming over and playing with my kids. My brother had flown a couple states over to spend time with us. People were donating money, thousands of dollars to help us
mm,
out. It was at that time, Shirik, that I developed what I call the attitude of gratitude.
mm.
And
It's
that's
a
where
wonderful
those
lesson for
three
us. Yeah.
tips came from, was from that moment that I realized I was not going to be the why me person. I was not going to become negative or sad or angry about this. And I knew I was going to have some rough days, but I was not going to let that those rough days determine who I was going to become.
That's really great. You're a brave person and a very positive attitude, because if something bad happens in the life, and then you are telling us attitude of gratitude, it's a very good lesson for us. Yeah, still be thankful for the recovery, for all the good things you can do and people did to you. That is wonderful. Yes. So maybe so we will talk about some online teaching aspect also, because you have been doing online teaching now since many years, right?
Yes.
Uh, and it was not common actually, online teaching back 10 years ago when you started. So what was your motivation, and how you found the situation now that everybody is doing online teaching now because of the pandemic?
So how I came into online teaching is thanks to my family, because when Becky and I had one son, Josh, I was teaching in a school about 80 kilometers away
Hmm.
in a very, very small town. And it was good. I was the drama director there. I directed the plays. I taught fifth grade. It was great. I had a really nice school, really nice people.
Hmm.
One day, Becky sends me an email with all it is the picture, an ultrasound
Hmm.
with two heads. We were expecting
Oh.
twins.
Hmm.
And
Good.
so to go from one kid to three kids and driving 160 kilometers round trip every day was not going to work for us.
Yeah.
So I started looking for a job that was closer to home. Eventually, a friend of ours told us about Minnesota Virtual Academy, which is an online public school here in Minnesota. So thankfully, I applied, and thankfully, I was hired to teach special education. So now my commute went from 80 kilometers one way to 80
To zero.
steps.
Into 80 steps. Yes.
Yeah,
Good.
give or take if I have to let the dog out in the morning. And so I have been able to teach middle school special
Mhm.
education for the last 8 years. This is my 9th year there.
Mhm.
And what I've learned about teaching online is that you need to be self sufficient and driven in order to be successful because there's no
What do you
principle
mean by
coming.
self-sufficient here?
I'm sorry, sir.
What do you mean by self-sufficient in this
Oh,
context?
yes. Well, there is no principal coming through my office door at my house to
Mhm.
check to make sure I'm doing my job. There, I don't have parents, coming to my door asking me every day about, their son or their daughter.
Mhm.
I am responsible for all the paperwork I send out, and it's, which is like a normal school, but in a normal school, you also have people you see every day. I see no one except
Mhm.
for on the computer. And if I close my computer, I don't see them at all. And if I needed those extra supports to be successful, I would not be successful. So you have to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, driven. And that's not to say I don't ask for help, but every day I have to wake up to my reality and I have to be willing and able to take on that reality and make it work.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so for someone who is teaching online and they're not used to it, having a system is vital to your success.
Yes.
Have,
So these are
either,
nice steps actually. So having a system to be self-sufficient, do you recommend any way to start?
you know, uh, I start with a list. I write down, I list the things I need to do every day.
Mhm.
And usually I put them in importance of deadlines. Okay, what is due first, what is due second, what is due third, and I make sure I get those done.
Mhm.
And then, you know, and then I look at not only deadlines but what is most important. Say if I
Mhm.
have something that that could or could not be done, that is due before something that needs to be done that is due a little later. I might do that needs to be done first before I do the can be
Mhm.
done.
Mhm.
But it's up to you. It's up to the person and their responsibilities. But
Mhm.
lists are key, and
Mhm.
also having a an online calendar. In fact, I use Microsoft Outlook for mine, and it keeps me organized, lets me know when my appointments are. It has a 15-minute reminder, and because sometimes you get invested in a project or talking with students or colleagues, and you need that reminder. Hey, you got this coming up, and so you have to shift your thinking. Okay, well, I'll talk with you later. I have to get ready for this. And so
Mhm.
setting up reminders, setting up calendars, setting up lists to keep you organized will help you be more successful.
So, guys who joined later, so we had a wonderful, wonderful discussion with Chris, all the way from New Ulm, USA. I always get, as said in the start, I get confused because next to Munich, just a couple of hours ago, couple of hours drive, we have Ulm here, and we also have Neu Ulm here in
Okay.
Germany. So, but anyways, it was a pleasure to have you here, Chris, and we discussed about history tips, and we talked about two wonderful things actually. First thing is actually a tragedy, but it turned out wonderful tips we are getting from Chris. And it was when something unexpected happen in the life, then our attitude that really changes our lives actually. And we have a lesson to learn from you, Chris. Thank you very much. And this we can apply in our lives in the time of pandemic also. This was wonderful. And in the end, Chris gave us some wonderful tips about online teaching, and one of the main thing was to be self-sufficient and self-driven, and that you can do with the help of lists. Chris, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here. Before signing out, if you want to add one statement for our viewers in Germany.
Certainly. Well, I have two things. First of all, if you want to see what I'm up to and in terms of speaking and other ventures, you can go to linktr.ee Chris DT Gordon, like it's spelled on the screen there.
Yeah,
So you can
and
see,
it's written in the post description also.
yes, and also pass on perfection and go for greatness.
Wow,
Going for
that's great.
perfection all the time is going to frustrate you, but if you're consistent and driven in your endeavors, you might be perfect once in a while, but you'll always be great.
That's wonderful. So everybody have different passion in the life. But as Chris said, you have to be persistent and you have to be driven, and then you will be successful. And it is only you guys, you can define your own success. We don't know what is your success, but you need, as Chris said, persistence and you to be driven. Okay, guys, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you here. And till next show, we are signing out, and my new friend Chris will stay in touch. Bye bye.
Yes, sir.